I'm going to put some bay leaves in here so the tannins keep things nice and crisp. I'm going to put a bit of garlic in there, right? You want to get as much in there as you can and as little air pockets as possible, right? This only works if everything is underwater. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and today I'm going to show you what I consider the best way to preserve sunchokes. If you don't know what a sunchoke is, watch one of my other videos about it. Some people call them Jerusalem artichokes. Some people call them soil apples. There's all these different names for them, but basically it's kind of like a giant daisy that grows about 6 feet high, and they make all kinds of roots like these. Kind of look like a ginger root almost, a little bit. But anyway, they're very sweet. But the thing about these is they don't keep well. Once you harvest them, best way, once you've harvested them, if you're just going to use them up right away, if you only have a few, you'd leave them dirty like this, still with the dirt on them. Stick them in a brown paper bag, stick them in the bottom of your fridge, and use them up over the next couple weeks and they should be fine. Any longer than that, they start to go soft and spongy and lose their vitality. They're a very good tasting, easy to grow crop. You can pretty much stick them in like the worst part of your garden, you'll still get something, right? Don't need great soil. I mean, the more sun they get, the better, but they don't really care about soil too much. Better soil is better, of course, but they will grow in poor soil, no problem at all. Anyway, because they don't keep well, one approach is you just keep them in the ground, devise some means to keep your soil from freezing, and just dig them up as you need them. But in the dead of winter, when there's a couple feet of snow and everything's frozen solid, that can be a bit of a pain. So another way to preserve these, and this is what I tend to do, is to ferment them. Now there's arguments I've heard people make that, the one thing about sunchokes is that they tend to give you gas. They've got a kind of sugar in them called inulin, I believe, that doesn't digest in your stomach, it digests in your intestines, which tends to be kind of gassy, and depending on who you are and how expandable you are, that might be more or less comfortable. It's certainly not a thing to serve on a romantic evening, let's put it that way. Fun thing to serve when you got kids, because what's funnier than fart jokes? It's a treasure trove of good, solid dad jokes, fart jokes all around. So, this is a half-gallon jar, and I boiled this water maybe half an hour ago, that's fine. So I'm going to take 3 tablespoons of pickling salt. You can use kosher salt, just don't use iodized salt. Okay, so 3 tablespoons of pickling salt. Any kind of pickling salt will do. And for one of these half-gallon jars, you need about 4 cups of water. All right, we got about there. Yeah. All right, we'll get a spoon. Give that a stir. While it's dissolving, we'll fill up our jar. I'm going to put a couple things in here. I'm going to put some bay leaves in here so the tannins keep things nice and crisp. About 3 good sized ones or 4 medium ones or 5 or whatever, right? It's a good place to use your tiny pieces of ones. But anyway, put some bay leaves in there. And it's not 100% necessary, but I find a couple, I don't mind the flavor of it. You can eat these, once they're fermented, you can eat them right out of the jar, or use them in cooking, which is what I tend to do. I tend to use a couple of these in a stir fry. You can add them to a lot of things, right? They're going to have an acidic pickled taste, so you use them in things where that makes sense. You can put them in salads, right? 3 certainly if you're going to eat them raw, just because it adds more of that flavor. And now we're going to put these in here. So I'm going to set aside one of these. I got a whole bunch of these, right? More than one variety, in fact. And most of these, I got them from an online place called chokedup.com. They gave them to me for free, so I gave them a plug on my YouTube channel. This is the longest one. I'm going to set that aside, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so I'll set that aside. All these other ones, you can cut them. Okay, so these have been washed about 3 times. They tend to have a lot of soil in them. I find cut them in half so you can fit them in there, right? Try to be gentle. That one's already a good size for pickling. really each one should be about, you know, the size of a pickle, right? So it's not a big deal to get these in here, right? Not too involved. Once these are fermented, they'll keep for months, as long as you keep them in the fridge. Okay, and the process for fermenting, just as I'm cutting these up, is you put the lid on, keep them on the kitchen counter for about a week. You'll notice they start to bubble and there'll be a certain very unique smell, and what happens as they ferment is the salt water solution becomes acidic, and that's what helps to preserve them, that acidity, right? It basically keeps out all the bad things, right? Create this sort of self-defending, or defending is not the right word, but you create an environment where the things you want thrive and the things you don't want really can't make it. Boy, it's about, let's give that a cut. Yeah, that's a good way to, like that, it gets everything, you want to get as much in there as you can and as little air pockets as possible, right? But I think we're getting to about that point. Okay, so we're almost full here now. We're almost to the neck. So when that happens, you want to take your biggest piece and get as long a slice out of it as you can. Okay, you get a slice that's wider than the neck of the jar. And what you do is you strategically place that in the jar. Oh, it broke. It doesn't matter. It's still, oh, shoot. No, it does matter. It broke in a way that I don't want. That piece, ideally, should hold everything in. I forced it and I broke it. Oh well, I think I can get something in here. Jam that in like that, perhaps. There we go. That's pretty good. You want it so that it holds, right? So that way, you know, you get the water, all this liquid in here, and it starts to float. You don't want floaters. You don't want anything floating. You want everything kept down below the surface of the water. This only works if everything is underwater, anaerobic, no oxygen. What's going to happen is there's a bacteria that is living on these, right? That bacteria is going to flourish in this environment. And over time, it'll convert so many of these sugar. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of vinegar to this. Okay, if you've got already some juice from a previous pickling batch, I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of vinegar in here. It's good to make it slightly acidic to start. You're better off to have some juice from a previous batch and put that in, okay, because then it's got the right flavor. But vinegar's fine. What you're doing is just you're starting off with everything being slightly acidic, okay? Once you've got that on there, so now everything is submerged, everything's underwater. You don't want anything above the water, it'll get this nasty stuff on it, okay? And you can check it over time, and if you see it starting to, you know, the water level dropping or whatever, you just add more water. But all you got to do is put a lid on, make it finger tight like this. These are the plastic lids for these mason jars, so just sort of like 3 finger tight. Leave it on the counter at room temperature. Put a brown paper bag over it or a cloth or something like that to keep it out of the light, because light and this bacteria do not get along. Leave it like that for a week. And after a week, I mean, you might want to check it every couple days, make sure it's bubbling and things are happening, right? That way you know it's working. After a week, don't eat them right away. Stick them in the fridge, leave them there for a couple weeks. Let the flavor sort of mature. And then they're going to last for months like that, right? They're going to last until you're, you know, I'm not going to say how long because I don't want to get in trouble, but they'll last months and months, okay? So for me, that's the best way to store sunchokes, fermenting. The second best way is to keep them in the ground. And of course, the third best way is just put them in a brown paper bag, but they'll only last a few weeks like that. But if you only got a few or you're giving some to a friend, that's a great way to do it. I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden, have fun in your kitchen. Thanks for watching.